Inside Out 2 is, you guessed it, a sequel to the 2015 film Inside Out. I had to double check to make sure it actually was 9 years ago that that first film came out. It was. I'm kicking this review off with the assumption that you've seen the first film, so I don't need to explain the general premise to you. But just in case you haven't, we're following a young girl, and more specifically the emotions that are going on inside of her head, which are actually personified through these colorful characters. And in a sense, I feel like that first movie kind of captured lightning in a bottle, so I was a bit skeptical to see whether or not they could actually pull off a sequel that feels like it actually has a purpose to it. Well, I'm pleased to say that I haven't enjoyed a Pixar movie this much in quite a while. I've been kind of thinking back and trying to remember what Pixar films have come out over the last half a decade or so. Turning Red, Lightyear come to mind, and I didn't really care for those that much. Elemental was fine, but this feels like a return to form. Maybe not a return to form, but a step in the right direction. I think Soul from 2020 might be the last one that I genuinely loved. Our protagonist Riley is starting high school now, so that means new friends, new sports, and you guessed it, new feelings. Joy, sadness, anger, fear, and disgust are all back from the last one. Some of the cast members have actually changed, and I didn't really notice until after watching it, so that didn't really affect my viewing experience. And as Riley enters adolescence, anxiety, envy, embarrassment, and boredom all enter the picture and kind of take over. As a sequel, this feels much more mature than the first one. Not that the first one wasn't mature, but this, in a literal sense, is more mature in that Riley is older than she was in the first film, but also in the way that it explores these new emotions that she's feeling. We've all dealt with anxiety at some point in our lives, the severity of which may go on a case-to-case basis, but it really does feel like it pops up out of nowhere sometimes, just like anxiety in the film does, who is voiced by Maya Hawke. And this is one of those great Disney experiences in which I'd say that kids and adults will have an equal amount of takeaways. Parents whose children are in puberty or have gone through puberty especially will find things to relate to here. But I also think that kids who are old enough to kind of get genuinely invested in the material will take things away from this as well and kind of almost be able to navigate through their own emotions better. Now that's impressive that a film is able to accomplish that and still be entertaining. And this kind of story easily could have gone wrong in the incorrect hands. I mean, you could almost say they've written themselves into a corner by having the main characters embody specific emotions. Because, for instance, if Joy ever gets sad or angry, it makes you go, wait a minute, she's Joy. Isn't she supposed to always be joyous and not any other kind of emotion? But the characters have just enough malleability so that they can have some interplay and discussion and still feel like they're true to the emotion that they're supposed to be. There's a lot of clever wordplay and metaphors in here too. For instance, when Riley first uses sarcasm, a literal chasm forms inside of her head and it affects the ability of the emotion characters to get to where they're trying to go. During another scene, they have to glide through a literal brainstorm. That's right, as she's brainstorming something that she's going to do, an actual thunderstorm forms in her mind. Also, this movie is 96 minutes long. It's such a breath of fresh air when we have so many long films coming out nowadays. I'm not saying that every great film is short, and I'm not saying that every Pixar film needs to be this short to be good. But it felt like it was airtight. There was no extra fat in this movie. Did I love it as much as the first movie? No. You can definitely feel the sequelitis sitting in just a little bit. And it's not that it's this movie's fault per se, it's just that we've seen this concept before and we're just adding new emotions and new feelings into the mixture. You know what would be cool actually is if every decade or so we got a new Inside Out sequel that chronicles the different milestones in Riley's life. I generally don't advocate for extending a story like this for that long, but if they did it right, it could be really cool. So Inside Out 2 is definitely a win. It's one of my favorite Pixar movies in a long time, and it sits up there with some of the best films of the year so far. I'm gonna give this one 4 stars. Parents out there, I don't think you'll regret taking your kids to this one. And those of you who just love Pixar films, get yourself out there and watch this as soon as you can. And if you do, be sure to let me know down in the comments what you thought of it and how it compares to the first one. Be sure to hit that like button and subscribe while you're at it if you want to see more content like this. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. See you later.